Currently in our area, 46 degrees under clear skies. Today, partly to mostly cloudy. Slight chance of a rain shower. High 72. Winds light and variable. Tonight, mostly cloudy. Friday, rain developing during the afternoon. Thunder possible. High 67. Chance of rain, 90%. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Your travel headquarters, it is heavy rain and it is stretching all the way up into Central Florida as well. Orlando could be a wet dry for you. Flash flood watch is in effect for portions of South Florida. That does include here in Miami. The good news is Zoo Miami is reopening October 14th since Hurricane Irma. Want the rain boots this morning, Jen?
How about those clear rain boots that Chanel? The whole rain line actually is all clear. Jackets and rain boots that come up to here, and fantastic. All right, but they are Chanel, so I'm not getting a pair. If you're wearing your rain boots to the airport this morning, we got some rain out there. You'll need that across the plains. Will it affect air travel though? I think overall we should be okay. Got to keep an eye on the Northeast. You know, there were a few thunderstorms yesterday, feisty up there in the parts of Maine. So could some of those get a little farther south today? It's a possibility. That could mean some isolated delays. Otherwise, we'll keep an eye on things for you in Pittsburgh and Miami with, of course, the rain there. All right, let's talk about the tropics. We'll go over with Jim.
All right. The good news is today, anyway, that we have our system interacting with land. You can kind of see it here sitting on the shore of Nicaragua. A lot of convection out over the water. But you remember seeing yesterday's visible pictures. Pretty nice circulation in through here. But this interaction with land today, I think, is going to keep this at bay for a while. The problem is, once it finishes doing that today, then it's heading out here over some very, very warm water, some deep, warm water across much of the northwestern Caribbean, and that is going to allow it to develop, we think. Now, one of the other things that we've been watching is this kind of elongated area of low pressure, all right, and that's in the upper levels here. There is a ton of wind shear around this thing. So if this is our depression, it is right now kind of protected in that little cocoon. That is forecast to move on off to the west. All right. And as it does that, it is going to allow for this tropical wave here to move in this way and also bring moisture back over to where that upper low brought the dry air. And that will eventually, all right, and that's what the models say, moisten up the atmosphere again, so this will allow this to develop once it passes the Yucatan. Exactly where the center goes is still a big question mark, and exactly how long this upper low adds the dry air to the Gulf of Mexico before the wave moves through is also in question, I think. So either way, many of the models do not make this a strong entity, but it's something we have to watch because of, at least right now, light shear and the fact that it's going to be over very, very warm water. NHC's got this 75-mile-an-hour hurricane coming somewhere along the northern Gulf Coast during the day on Sunday, and then accelerating and weakening rapidly, obviously, as it moves. Here in the last 14 to 30 days has not had much rain at all, Stephanie. Some areas like Memphis, you have to go the last, I think, 23 days now since they had rain.
So most people die in freshwater flooding when it comes to hurricanes, you know, and surge. Basically, the water is what kills most people when it comes to tropical entities. So we want to talk about the surge. First, we're going to talk about the wind forecast. And again, we're going to watch this circulation, this low pressure, progress towards the north. Now, why is the east side usually the more dangerous side? Well, when it comes to winds, first of all, you have the winds. Remember, counterclockwise flow. So the winds are going from south to north, and the whole system's moving from south to north. So they're a lot stronger here, opposed to the west side, where the winds are going north to south, but the storm is going in the opposite direction. Same thing with that push of water here on the east side. The whole storm is moving that way, and the winds are moving that way. So it's going to push that water on shore. So there it goes as we head into our Sunday. That's when we think we're going to see some landfall. Now, bathymetry is one of my favorite weathers. I guess it's not a weather term, it's more of a geological terminology. But bathymetry is how the, so here in the Gulf Coast, it is very shallow. And because you have that very, shallow shelf, it can build up the water. And so that's what happens, is that you have this shallow shelf and it can build up for miles and miles out and then push on ashore here. And surge, I think, could be a little bit of an issue here. These are the vulnerable areas that are along the coast for a Category 1. And with that onshore push, Jen, that, of course, is going to be a little bit problematic.
Yeah, I mean, this is a complicated forecast. Of course, as we get new information, we keep breaking it down. Meanwhile, we're watching your weekend weather and NASCAR making lefts at Charlotte Motor Speedway this weekend. Here is a live look at the Queen City. Got sunshine out there today, low 80s, beautiful weather. We've had it lately, but it doesn't last for the weekend. Guys, this is tough timing. We haven't had rain September 11th and 12th here in Charlotte. And now look at this forecast. Great for you on Friday and all the practice round. Go then, enjoy good weather, a little warm actually, but rain on Saturday and then thunderstorms on Sunday. So the front coming in, the same front that's going to help control and steer rain by Saturday coming into Charlotte. Jim?
All right, we got 77 days until winter. We are all things weather here. We are rolling out our winter storm names next. Our winter storm expert, Tom Nizzle, the Niz Diggity, comes out of hibernation to talk about the winter you could expect. And good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. Almost there, baby. All right, let's talk about TD16 because it is going to continue to pull on to the north today, interact with land, but eventually heading into the Gulf of Mexico and the northern Gulf Coast for Sunday. We will have impacts, and we'll talk about them. Away from that, there's a tropical wave and a little low-pressure system that will push across Florida today with showers and thunderstorms. Some of these will be heavy. Expect the wind to continue, too. And as we look at tomorrow, an upper air disturbance coming out of the Rockies promises rotating thunderstorms. Some of these will produce hail, some gusty winds, maybe a few tornadoes.
Yeah, maybe.
That should about wrap up Friday.
That is going to wrap up. I think that's enough for going into the weekend. That's plenty. Welcome back into AMHQ this morning. Of course, we are keeping tabs on Tropical Depression 16, would be named Nate. We think this is going to get named.
It is going to get named. It'll be interesting to see what happens once it emerges from land today. I think it's going to be a slow go today. Anyway.
And it's a small little thing. And usually when they start small, they typically stay smaller, but it also means it could strengthen a lot faster if it's little. It
is, and it could kind of be protected a little bit from some of the other things that are going on. And we'll talk about all of this. But let's take you into cities like Tallahassee, Florida, and Biloxi, Mississippi. You guys should be preparing for some of the impacts from the storm as it moves to the north. Again, maybe Saturday, Steph, getting into some of the tropical storm force winds Saturday night on into Sunday morning at the earliest possible scenario with this.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. And exactly where it lines up on the coast will depend on when it comes in. If it goes a little bit farther east, into Florida, then the timing is going to be a little bit different. But what we know so far about this is there's going to be life-threatening flooding in places like Nicaragua, Honduras, and Costa Rica. The exact tract is unknown, but it's looking like some sort of landfall on the Gulf Coast, wind surge, heavy rain to Louisiana over into Alabama, Mississippi, and the Florida Panhandle as well. So this is where our system is right now, moving northwest at 7 miles an hour. You're like, let's see, moving northwest at 7 miles an hour. Well, if it keeps doing that, then it's going to interact with land. That's a bad thing. It's just going to keep going that way. That's not what is going to happen. It's going to change. The direction is going to change. And the reason it's going to change is because we have, 4 different systems are at play with this forecast. So right now, tropical storm warnings here for Honduras and Nicaragua, hurricane watch up towards, Mexico and Cancun. Right now, we're anticipating this to go over Cancun and then not continue on this track, but go more towards the north. And the reason being is, high pressure, tropical wave, upper low, trough in the Midwest. Those are my 4, Jim, that are all kind of doing a little push, pull, tug, shear, no shear thing.
Think about it. This will not have free reign over the tropics like a lot of the monsters that we dealt with earlier in the season did. All right. There's going to be some issues with this. And the first one today, again, as Steph and I talked about, is the interaction with land. I think this part of the NHC cone where we go from potentially a 40-mile tropical storm to a 65-mile-an-hour one is key. Because then from here, if you start with a 35-mile-an-hour tropical storm or cyclone and move it up to the Gulf Coast, it may not be as strong. Many of our intensity models, which aren't superb, do not bring this into a hurricane. All right, NHC brings it into a minimal hurricane as that comes into the northern Gulf Coast on Sunday. So something to watch in through here. Just be prepared either way. Certainly getting something into New Orleans is no bargain because you're talking about many areas to flood there, Mississippi, Alabama as well. All right, the chance of tropical storm force winds, you can see where the highest probabilities are, and that certainly goes right along with the center of, or in east of the center, where we expect it to come on in. For those of you preparing, again, it's on that Saturday night, Sunday morning where we have the best, or I should say the highest probabilities of getting those tropical storm force winds. I think a lot of it will be Sunday morning for areas along the Gulf Coast. But what we know, again, exact track still a little bit uncertain, but surge, wind, and heavy rain, Jen, are all possibilities along the northern Gulf Coast.
And Steph just talked about, in the Gulf Coast, really surge is a big factor in terms of impacts, just based on the bathymetry, which is a word that we all like in terms of vocab verbs for weather. All right, so let's talk about your weather today, though. In the South Florida area, I mean, just wet is the only word to describe this. It is raining, it is pouring, the old man is storing. It's all happening right here today, where we've got rain coming in and throughout the day today. We still have this onshore flow. So this new rain that we're getting with the tropical wave is on top of everything else that's already happening. So that's like sort of the underlying conditions. And then we get the tropical wave that comes in to bring us the showers. Where does that go? Well, it travels across the Gulf of Mexico. It's not expected to develop, so don't worry about that. But it sort of leaves in its wake just a lot of moisture that gets pulled up behind it right there across the Gulf of Mexico. So here's your Florida forecast today. Look at this round of rain after rain after rain coming in through today and moving north, too. So Orlando, it's going to be a tough day. Jacksonville will get the showers. And then tomorrow we're just back into our onshore flow. And yes, more rain, but not as much as today kind of forecast.
Which will be nice because today is going to be a heavy storm ravaged Puerto Rico. The Defense Department is focusing on distributing critical supplies. That's been the issue, it seems to be all along. 12 Puerto Rico National Guard armories have been set up as points of distribution or pods for food and water. A total of 23 pods are in place across Puerto Rico, Jim. That's so nice to see. Yeah,
it is nice to see. And again, we're still cleaning up from Harvey. We're still cleaning up from Irma. We can't forget about Irma, as a matter of fact, in Florida. One city in particular still struggling nearly a month after the storm. What still needs to be done in Everglades City, taking the eye wall. Next.
AMHQ Travel Headquarters, and we have a wet one in Indianapolis. So as you head out the door, all that Jen and I can discuss right now are these see-through Chanel boots, but they're kind of like high, type of boots. So they're very sexy.
Those bubble umbrellas?
Yes, that you see through.
Yes, yeah. So
you know what I AMHQ Travel Headquarters, and we have a wet one in Indianapolis. So as you head out the door, all that Jen and I can discuss right now are these see-through Chanel boots, but they're kind of like high, type of boots. So they're very sexy.
Those bubble umbrellas?
Yes, that you see through.
Yes, yeah. So
you know what I don't enjoy that's see-through? The see-through purse. Even though they like them at NFL games and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that can get. Indianapolis, though, showers for you, so you're going to want see-through everything.
Maybe not everything. Okay, you always got to check her. You always got to check her. All right, let's take a look at your forecast in Indianapolis. We do have rain this morning. The boots, see-through or not, will be handy. Same thing for lunchtime, but by evening, hopefully we can catch a break here. Otherwise, today's a pretty rainy day in Indianapolis. Steph and Jim?
Jim's saying he wants some clear boots. I'm asking him, knee-high clear boots?
And
is that what you want?
wear some funky socks underneath it. All right.
There you go, Jim.
Anyway.
Well, before a storm hits, of course, it is our priority to warn you, the viewers, of impending danger. And we know that really when the storm is over, that's when you're going to need us even more.
For many, and we're committed to telling those stories. Nearly a month after Hurricane Irma, most of Southwest Florida is getting back to normal. Again, as I say, most.
Yes, but as Weather Channel's Justin Michael shows us, places like Everglades City are still struggling. This, of course, is where we had landfall.
Nearly a month after Hurricane Irma, one remote city on the southwest coast of Florida is still struggling to pick up the pieces.
The wind didn't subside when the water started rising. We ended up with about 8 to 10 feet.
Everglades City, population roughly 450, and dubbed the stone crab capital of the world. And with 1 month to go to the start of tourist season, they have a long way to go to clean up.
This hurricane affected the whole state of Florida, so getting crews down, contractors and stuff to get the trash picked up off the streets been difficult.
This is a very close-knit community, far removed from the rest of Florida civilization. So the first responders here are the people who live.
No homes, and unfortunately temporary housing's been an issue for a lot of them because this area is a flood zone.
In a small town like Everglades City, it's not just the people who wear badges who make it their job to help others.
Here at the restaurant,
despite this mess, her only goal is to get her employees working again.
They have families too, so yeah, that's kind of one of my biggest problems, or they don't have a job right now. So
they've seen devastating hurricanes before in Everglades City. Donna, 1960. Wilma, 2005, and now Irma, 2017. They've rebuilt before, and they'll do it again.
I think everybody will come back bigger and better as far as business-wise. We're a tourist town, so we count on that, So we need everybody to know we're good, we're here, we're not going anywhere.
The scope of the problems here in Everglades City, Florida, extend far beyond people's front steps, right here to the front steps of City Hall. During the storm, they had water up to the doorknobs, and at this point, this building is structurally unsound. In Everglades City, Florida, Justin Michaels, The Weather Channel.
And just for a technicality, they got the eye wall, not technically landfall,
correct,
but, it came in there in that area. Everglades National Park also took a beating from Irma. The parks remain partially closed.
And the Gulf Coast Visitor Center that's at Everglades City could be closed for months.
All right, Jen, what's coming up next?
Well, we're going to talk more about the tropics because we have Tropical Depression 16. The track has shifted westward, and it is going to interact a bit more with land. So we'll talk about what that means in terms of intensity and track. We'll come back in a moment with how strong it could be by the time it reaches the U.S. All right, Steph, it's Thursday. It's Friday Eve. Get us into the weekend.
Friday Eve. And so we're going to have a lot of eyes on what's happening here to Florida. But that's not the only playa in town. Don't hate the playa, hate the game. And that's what we are going to be hating as we head into our Friday, because we do have the threat for storms where you see the red shading on the map, hail, damaging winds type of a thing. So I'm not expecting a big tornadic outbreak. Saturday, we are going to see our front push east, our system coming north here into the Gulf, potentially Nate. New York, you're looking good on Saturday, really nice. On Sunday, a little warmer and cloudier, and the bulk of the rain is going to be here into the southeast. By the way, with Nate coming in to the south, eventually getting into the northeast as we head into our Monday, Tuesday. Yes, it is. So we're going to have more details on the extended forecast of this potential tropical storm coming up. We'll be back in 2 minutes. This morning on AMHQ, we are looking at the Gulf Coast, starting to take notice as some models are showing a tropical threat this weekend, potentially here for the French Quarter. This is courtesy of EarthCam. All's quiet here, but we could be getting tropical downpours. Could it be a storm, a tropical storm, or a hurricane? Well, we're going to follow the intensity, and there are 4 different factors affecting the path of this and its intensity. Then once it goes inland, what does that mean for places like Atlanta and Pittsburgh? Remember, Atlanta had a hard time with Irma. Meanwhile, residents of Houston and Florida dealing with health risks, Harvey and Irma, the dangers that lurk in the floodwaters from those storms, and what the CDC says you need to do to stay safe. Record snowfall in October seems like a perfect time to reveal our winter storm names. We have our winter weather expert Tom Nizzle joining us on what you can expect. Well, we've got hurricane watches issued for parts of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. That includes Cancun. Over in Campeche, you still likely get a taste from tropical storm force winds as Tropical Depression 16 works its way towards the Gulf of Mexico. Jen, they build really, really strong in Mexico. I've seen them, or Jim, I should say. They build super strong there in Cancun.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what this becomes when it goes off of Nicaragua and Honduras and makes its way up, if you will, toward the Yucatan. So Steph's talking about up and through here, and we're going to watch our depression today interact with land, so I don't think it's going to be more than what it is right now. But then it gets over some pretty warm water in through here, and the Hurricane Center has this going from 40 miles per hour storm to a 65 mile per hour tropical storm. And again, from that point, what are we dealing with here? Are we dealing with a 40 mile an hour storm or a 65 mile an hour storm? From there, it has a chance to strengthen even further, possibly up to about 75. But it only has about 24 hours to do so. So it's going to be a quick mover in through here once it takes off from the Yucatan. Now, remember, we're dealing with Sunday morning landfall here. Most of the models are keeping this at tropical storm force. most of the models. So the Hurricane Center up at a minimal hurricane at 75 miles per hour with this. A lot of clustering in the models. We saw overnight, again, the European actually shifting west to go along with most of the guidance now. And that's why you saw the morning track from the Hurricane Center also shifted on off toward the west. From that point on, this thing's going to take off and obviously lose its tropical characteristics as it zips across the United States. One positive note here, I looked at some of the rainfall totals where the cone is right now within this track, and guess what? We haven't had much rain at all in the last 14 to 20 days. So whatever this is going to do once it comes on shore, I think rainfall-wise, it's actually going to be more beneficial than anything else. All right, so there may be some flash flooding, but I think overall we could use the rain in a good part of the Mid-South and through here. As a matter of fact, if you look at just the last 7 days, it has been bone dry in this area where we have the cone. All right, which is about right in through here. So not much rainfall, not only the last 7 to 10 days, but also going back to the last 20. So life-threatening flooding for Nicaragua, Honduras, and Costa Rica. That's what we're looking at today. The exact track where the center goes is still uncertain, but we have seen that shift west overnight. But we do expect wind, surge, and heavy rain Sunday from Louisiana into Florida. Jen, over to you.
We also know the intensity certainly has a lot of uncertainty with it as well. We're going to look at this tropical replay to look at systems that have been within the vicinity of where TD16 is right now and where do they go after that here. So let's bring out our tropical replay. And so right now, the system 16, which is likely to eventually become Nate, is located just off the coast of Nicaragua. So we take this point and we go out 175 miles from this point and show you all the storms in October that have been within this position. Again, 175 miles away. You go back to 1851, so we've got the full database here, and there have been 18 October storms within this distance. One that we want to pull out is actually the 1921 Great Tampa Bay Hurricane. This one had a big surge component. That was a big issue for the Tampa Bay area. It made landfall just near the Clearwater Beach area. And as Steph talked about earlier this morning, for most locations here along the Gulf Coast because of the shallow shelf. So surge was a big issue here. It was at its peak a Cat 4, made landfall again just north of the Clearwater area. Then let's take a look at Opal. Now Opal's an interesting one because where it formed actually was TD16 is right now, but it sort of had its origins a little farther south. It just didn't become a tropical depression until it was off the coast of the Yucatan. It spent a couple of days over the Yucatan and then it went out over the Gulf of Mexico and had rapid development. And so Opal became a Cat 4. It was the strongest Cat 4 of the season. It made landfall as a Cat 3 near Pensacola. And until Ivan for Pensacola, Opal was the hurricane of record. And it brought a surge up over 15 feet, power outages, damage. I mean, significant issues. Actually, it moved inland into Alabama, significant power outages and damage. Now, could this be an Opal? That's a question, of course, that folks might be asking, right? As we look at TD16, potentially Nate, could there be rapid intensification in the Gulf? You know, Opal was over very warm water, Steph. A big difference, though, is that there wasn't a lot of steering with Opal, and it had some time to develop. Things are a bit different when it comes to the steering, when it comes to what will likely be Nate.
Yeah, it is. All right.